curious, how have you grown, how you growing now or have grown recently in the last few months through this teamwork. I can share, my example. I see like three main, let's say, activities for myself related to reflection and growing. One is direct observation. I observe how my team members, for example, how Hilke interacts with client, and I learn directly from just observing and seeing, certain way of engaging a client into a dialogue and owning a solution that we develop together for a particular challenge that the client might have. And so this is like a direct observation for which you have to put yourself in a, like you said before, in a learner position, right? You kind of have to accept, I'm a learner here, I'm learning. The second thing that we just discussed, feedback. And I myself had a great piece of feedback recently, which was related to how I show up for the meetings, which reminded me that before any meeting, it's so critical to take a moment or two to check in with yourself and see what kind of, state you are in, how energetic, how positive you are, right? Prior to clicking that join the meeting button, right? And that makes a huge difference. You show up in the right mood, in the, I don't know, light, fun, energetic way, and the meeting is flying, right? And you show up in a bit of different level of intensity and heaviness, and the meeting is very different again, right? So these are the examples of, small things you could do which help you spend a minute or two self-reflecting, tuning into yourself, and kind of changing the reality right there, right there in that moment. So maybe you have an example from like recent months or two of growth like that.
Yeah, I have a handful. Thank you for the opportunity, Elena, and I love your examples. One, I will tell you, used to feedback would make me uncomfortable. Constructive feedback would make me uncomfortable, and I would get defensive with it. And really working to embrace the opportunities for me to improve. If somebody offers you feedback or gives you feedback, they're doing so because they care about your growth. They wouldn't bother or waste their time in giving feedback or constructive feedback to you if they didn't care about your growth. And so embracing feedback is a big area where I'm working continually to grow. Perception is reality, sometimes fair or unfair, right? There's sometimes that there's a perception of you that's not fair, that's out there, but you'll find in your career and in your life that often perception is reality. It's important to understand where people feel like from a different vantage point, you could improve and be a better partner, be a better leader. Furthermore, I would say really just that continued embrace of change. I will tell you, it's important to check in with ourselves frequently and to acknowledge when we're just not feeling it sometimes. And that's a reality. I think that became more prominent what with the pandemic. And then obviously over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty in our world. And sometimes we're going to face these times where we're just not feeling it. And I was one of those people that I always, though I had a lot of people tell me because I would work a lot and I was a perfectionist and I was, a success addict, as Arthur C. Brooks calls it, in From Strength to Strength. I had to acknowledge, even I reached a point where I had symptoms of burnout. And so getting better at acknowledging those things, checking in with myself, and sometimes shrinking my bubble. You don't have to take on the world every day. You just have to land the step in front of you. And the farther and longer you navigate through your career and in your life, you know what you need to do. So the key element is just to do it. That's why I think self-reflection is so important, because you eventually get to a point where you feel, I love this analogy, I've made it in some of my books, where you feel like you're Neo in the Matrix, where you see these things before they happen. You have the ability to move so effectively that you can dodge bullets. The reason that I think it's effective here is because often we know what we need to do. The challenging things sometimes is conjuring ourselves back to our best every day. You don't have to be your best every day. Sometimes it's okay to acknowledge that you're not your best and to give yourself grace, land the step in front of you, communicate to others where you might need help. Those are all areas where I am growing and I'm a work in progress.
Yeah, and this is really, really, to me, it sounds really what connectedness is about, like being connected to self in this case, right? You're really connected to self when you frequently check in and recognize those things, and being connected to others by being open about this with others.